Okay, good morning, everyone. So we will begin with the next topic, that is learning about some of the common distributions in statistics. So the first one is Bernoulli's distribution. So what is Bernoulli's distribution? Uh, it arises as the result of a binary outcome. So basically, there'll be only two outcomes. One is either 1 or 0. All right. So they take only two values, and let's say that they have a probability of p and 1 minus p. All right. So say, let's say probability of 1 is p, and the probability of 0 is 1 minus p. So now what will be the probability mass function for a Bernoulli random variable x? Hmm, So just give me a second. This will be equal to x is equal to x is equal to this, right? So this is going to be the, so are you clear with this? We say the probability mass function for x is equal to belonging to 0 or 1. So effectively it will be, if x is 1, then it becomes p into 1 minus p, and if x is 0, it becomes, sorry, if x is 1, then it becomes p raised to 1 into 1 minus p raised to 0, right? So which is effectively p. And if x is equal to 0, then it becomes p raised to 0 into 1 minus p raised to 1, which is effectively 1 minus p, right? And so basically this is the same as p and 1 minus p for x is equal to 1 and x is equal to 0. All right. So now the mean of the Bernoulli random variable is p, right? So if you take the mean of this, right? So uh, how will the mean be taken? We say p into 1 plus 0 into 1 minus p. Okay. We say p into 1 plus 1 minus p into 0. That gives us the mean as p. All right. And the variance will be p into 1 minus p. We can just do the simple computation, right? So we say that if the mean is p, do I need to solve this? How the variance becomes 1 minus p? So now this is the standard formula. So now, so p is mu is equal to p, right? This we know. Then variance would be uh, 1 minus p, because one of the values is 1, right? 1 minus p. Okay. So for this it becomes 1 minus p the whole square plus 0 minus p the whole square. Hmm. Is this correct? Are we making any mistake somewhere? And then we multiply it by probability, I guess. This thing gets multiplied by the probability. This will get multiplied by p, and this will get multiplied by 1 minus p. All right. And this whole thing gets divided by 2. So now what do we get? We get this is correct, right? So now 1 minus p is common, and we are left with 1 minus p into p, so that becomes p minus p square plus p square, right? So this was common, expectation of x minus expectation of x the whole square, right? So expectation of x is p, right? So that's it. So we're left with 1 minus p into p, correct? So that gives us the variance. Okay. So now, so he says if we let x be a Bernoulli random variable, it is typical to call x minus x is equal to 1 as success and x is equal to 0 as failure. Now Bernoulli distribution is a special case of binomial distribution with n is equal to 1. We will look at binomial distribution once again. We have already seen this, I guess, in the last lecture. We're just having a look at it again. So is this clear now? Bernoulli distribution will have these mean and probability, and this is the PMF for the Bernoulli distribution. Okay. So now let's look at the binomial trials. So now in the binomial random variables, what are we saying? We're saying basically it's the sum of identical independent identically distributed Bernoulli trials, right? So effectively in Bernoulli it's just like one coin toss, right? Here we are saying we can have n number of coin tosses. So in specific, let's say we can say x1 up to xn be IID Bernoulli with probability p, all right? Then x, the sum, capital X, which is the summation of all of this, is a binomial random variable, right? So what will be the probability mass function in this case? It will clearly be this, right? And ncx, we know this, we choose. So it's effectively, say if I'm tossing the coin 5 times, how many times do I get a heads? Okay. Or rather, what's the probability of getting a heads 3 times? So first is how many ways can I choose? uh, 3 out of 5, right? So that is ncx, right? So 5c3. Okay. And then probability of getting a heads, that is p raised to power 3 times, right? Into probability of getting a tails raised to power n minus x, all right? So there will be a n minus x here, right? So is this clear? Is this equation clear to you? Yeah, Debashri, is it clear for you also? I mean, though you may not have, in case you followed the other classes, then you would have been able to follow this. Otherwise, I can go a little more into details about this. Have you understood how we get this? So basically, I mean, this is a standard thing. This is just the mathematical notation of uh, the whole thing, all right? So this is my binomial function. So for x is equal to 0 to n. So in case we substitute x as 1, right? So it becomes the same as what we had. We get back the Bernoulli's uh, trial distribution. We say p raised to 1 into 1 minus p, all right? Sorry, x will be 0 to 1, 0 to 1, whereas n can be 1. Let's say if I say take n as 1, so it becomes, so any choice between whether 1c0 or 1c1 is equal to 1, right? So I get probability as p into 1 minus p raised to power x and 1 minus x, all right? So this is my binomial mass function. Is this clear? Debashri, is Debashri sitting with you? Oh, no, Sarvani is giving the yes. What about Debashri? So we can recall this notation. Okay, all right. So I'm saying this is what it is, right? N factorial divided by x factorial and minus x factorial, right? So read n choose x. So we say n, and we know that n0 and nn is equal to 1. Okay. So let's look at an example. It says, so somebody has 8 children, 7 of which are girls, and none are twins. So if each gender has an independent 50% probability for each birth, right? So which means p is equal to 0.5. What's the probability of getting 7 or more girls out of 8 birth? So let's first look at the probability of getting 7 children, 7 girls, right? So we say how many choices? 8c7 first thing. And then let's look at the probability. We say 0.5 raised to power 7 into 1 minus p
that is 1 minus 0.5 raised to power n minus 1, that is 1. Now this takes care of 7 children part. All right, and then we have to do the 8 children similarly. So this part takes care of 8 children. We say 0.5, and this effect approximately is this. All right, so this is all mathematical. You've already done this. How about doing this using R? All right, so we say we use the function choose. All right, so what does choose do? Effectively it is NCR. All right, NCK. Okay, so I say choose from 8, choose 7. All right, that's the first thing, and then I multiply 0.5 raised to power 7. All right, and again I say 1 minus 0.5, that's again 0.5 raised to 1. All right, so this would be my calculation for the first uh, part, and then we say second part, choose 8 comma 8. All right, into 0.5 raised to power 8. All right, so I get this answer 0.035. All right, now what he's saying is, so this is my answer 0.035. Now there is an inbuilt function for this. Now this is a little complicated, right? Is being able to solve the stats problem necessary? Although R has these inbuilt, do we need to know their application so as to know which functions to use when? Uh, Look, it's not about necessary. It's just that uh, if you solve them mathematically, you understand them fundamentally, right? So it's better, right? You will have a much deeper understanding of the subject, right? And then once you have that, then you start using the R functions, which are very quick anyways, right? So now there's an inbuilt function for this. And the function is, so we're looking at the probability, right? So if you're looking at probability, it'll always start with P, okay? And then the type, for example, binomial, right? So P binom, all right? So now P binom has these inputs. One is, first input is Q, all right? Q is the uh, is so in our case it is 7. Basically we are saying, uh, so let's understand this P binomial function in R, all right? P binom, okay? Is this readable? I guess this is readable, right? So we're saying we have different, we have P binom, we have Q binom, R binom, D binom. We look at these, but let's begin with P binom. So P binom, the input is Q, right? Q is a vector, all right? Uh, and P is the okay, P is not there in this, right? Then what is N? N is not there appearing in this. We have size. Size is the number of trials. In our case, the number of trials is 8, all right? And so and finally what we get the, so probability, we give the P, right? So what is the probability of success on each trial? Now the important one is this, logical dot P, this you don't bother about, let it be false, okay? Because then we are typically dealing with probabilities in terms of P as itself, not as log P. Now lower dot tail, this by default is true, okay? What does this mean? So what is this question formula giving me? What it is giving me is this. It is saying probability that x is less than equal to x. So in my P binomial, I have this q, right? Probability that x is less than equal to q effectively, right? So probability that x is less than equal to q. In case I say lower dot tail is equal to false, then it becomes probability that x is greater than equal to q, all right? Which is nothing but 1 minus that probability, right? So in our case, so if you have you understood this? Have you understood this? Okay, the rest of you, Dipankar, Lavita, Debashri, you haven't understood this. See, it is just that, okay, let us look at this. We had our equation here, right? Now, what all are the inputs? One of the inputs is this, that is n, number of trials, all right? So I have my number of trials, all right? Then 7 is the point that is telling me, so the number of trials is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So 7 is the point. It says, what is the probability of getting 7 or more girls out of 8 births? So let me draw a line here. Okay, I separate it here. So there's a probability of all this, and there's a probability of all this, which is 1 minus p, right? So now, what all are the parameters? First parameter is this. Second is where am I drawing this dividing line, right? And what is the third parameter? The third parameter is what is the probability of the success of any of the events. So this is my third parameter. So I used these three parameters to come up with this formula, right? So if I came up with this formula, so now I have to use these three parameters. One is n, one other is p. No. So this probability is different, right? This, let me put it capital P, right? It is the sum of all the probabilities, right? So, and this small probability p is the probability of each of these. They're finite events, right? Because it's a discrete function here, not a continuous one, right? So each of them have a probability small p. So now, if I was to draw one single formula out of this, let's say, let me call it my binom, right? I create a function in R. Let's say I create a function in R which is my binom. I should give it three inputs. What is the first input? Let's say uh, where I want to divide the line. Okay, so whatever number I give, below that it will give me this answer. So output will be this capital P. Okay, so I say let me divide the line below 7, right? And then I say what is the total number, the size. Okay, in this case the size is 8. And then the next thing that I need to mention is the probability. So I say probability is 0.5. Okay, so now this will be my output P. That's it. So my binom takes care of this. In case I want to measure this, I can just say 1 minus my binom for the same values. So at least this much part is clear. Now I'm saying to make it simplified, whether I want P or 1 minus P, I introduce another variable which is called lower dot tail. Alright. So lower dot tail by default is true, which means I will always get P. If I set it to false, my output will be 1 minus capital P. So this mind binom, the function that I have written, I can replace it with P binom, all right, which is an inbuilt function in R. So is this clear? Okay, all right. So now let's look at this P binom and use it. P binom. So my first input would be how much? 7, right? Q is 7, size is 8, probability is 0.5, all right. And then the lower dot tail, is that false or true? What am I interested in? I'm interested in what's the probability of getting 7 or more girls out of 8 births, which means actually I'm interested in, am I interested in lower dot tail equal to false or true? Tell me. Please give me your answers. False. Okay. Sarvani has given me the answer false. What about Debashri, Lavita, Dipankar? False, right? So, okay. So I get the same. So now I get an answer which is point 0. No, something is wrong here, right? Uh, what went wrong? Sorry, it should not be 7. Let's look at the definition once again, right? P binom. Where I'm cutting it, that is the probability of x less than equal to x, right? So I should be cutting it at 6, not at 7, right? So my cutting point would be determined by this value and not this value, all right? That's just whichever you start following, okay? So given that, what is the change that I need to make here in my formula? Tell me. Instead of 7, it becomes 6, and I get the same answer. Is this fine? So you've understood how we computed binomial probability using p binom function? All right, so let's move ahead. Now, a random variable is set to follow normal distribution. We studied the normal distribution the last time, right? With a mean is equal to mu and variance is sigma square if the associated probability density function is this. Okay, so uh, let me just uh, rewrite this. So it is 2 pi sigma square. All right, this whole thing raised to power 1 by 2, that is basically 1 upon root of this, right? So let me write it in a more mathematical notation. So 1, oops, so 1 upon square root of this, that's the first term, right? Into, I can say 1 upon e raised to power x minus mu, the whole square, divided by 2 sigma square. All right. So this is what it looks like. Is this fine? So this is my p probability density function for x. All right. This is the normal distribution. Okay. So we don't need to get into the mathematical proof of how it is this way and all. We just assume this for now. Okay. We not even be using this. This just for you to know. Okay. This is the actual equation behind it. Okay. So every time we see that graph. So now if I say if x is a random variable with this density, this probability density, then expected value of x will be mu and variance will be sigma square. Now we can write this as this notation. We say normal distribution with mu and sigma square. All right. Now when mu is equal to 0, all right, and sigma is equal to 1, then this is called standard normal distribution. So I can always, and standard normal variables are normally labeled as z. Okay, typically we will label them as x, but in this case we will label them as z. Okay, and let's look at this now. What I'm doing is, let's come to R. Okay, and so what I've done is I've written actually the same equation here. All right, only trick here is that I'm using, I'll change my mu and sigma. Okay, uh, I'll change the mu and sigma, and we'll see how the graph changes. So what I've done, let's just let me make it more readable for you. Okay, so I set mu, and then I set sigma, then I set my x norm, all right, which is that whole big formula, all right, and then I say x is equal to this, y is equal to this, and so on. So see what's there. So I've given a value to mu, I've given a value to sigma, and I say x normal. I've just is minus. Why I'm taking this 3 is because I want to actually drop what I'm doing with x normal is I want to say how much I want. What should be my x-axis? So basically, this is not x normal. I can let's just maybe call it x-axis. All right. So I want to define my x-axis. So x-axis, in that I add mu, right? Because I want to keep it, uh, you know, separated from. I mean, I want to offset it. All right, and then I get my y. Y is using this big formula that we had written. All right, and then eventually I plot x and y. Let us see what happens. So I'm using all this lines of code, and I plot my graph. What do I get? I get this. What we will be doing now is, just notice. So you can read this graph. So this goes all the way till point 1 2, and here it is actually coming to some, the center point or the mean is somewhere here, somewhere at mu is equal to 1. Okay, I'm changing these values. I'm creating standard normal. I say 0, all right, and then sigma is equal to 1. And let me rerun this. Just notice what has happened. When I re-execute it, what has happened? Did the graph change? What changed actually? If you notice, the shape of the graph did not change at all. How many of you noticed that? That the shape of the graph did not change at all. Only the x-axis and the y-axis changed. Yeah. So basically we are saying that even when you change mu and sigma, the property of the graph won't change. Actually, all of these graphs are the same. There's only one graph. Only difference is it is either scaled, so you're kind of stretching it by giving it sigma, or you're offsetting it by giving it mu. Nothing else changes. Let's just do it one more time. I give a huge mu to it. I give a mu which is 100, and then I give a sigma which is say 5. All right, and let's plot it. Do you notice? So now these values are shifting from 85 to 115, and here it is all the way 0 to 0.08 only, but the graph stays the same. Is it very clear? So this is an important concept, that actually everything is standard distribution. In reality, there is only one curve in the whole of normal distribution. Is this fine? So I can use any mu, any sigma, I can compute that curve, the new curve, because all that is doing is it's just offsetting the x-axis by mu and then stretching the x-axis by sigma. Is this clear? This concept is clear? All right. So now let's look at some of these. So now he's saying is what are the numbers that are typically used? One is that you're interested in 68%, 95%, and 99% of the normal density. They lie within first, second, and third standard deviation from the mean, respectively. All right. So what does that mean? Okay. So coming back to our R, we're saying the let's draw it for a standard case, right? Mu is equal to 0, sigma is equal to 1. All right. Now this region here in this graph from -1 to 1 is 68% of the of the area under the curve. All right. This region -2 to 2 is 95% of the area under the curve. All right. And then this region -3 to 3 is 99% of the area under the curve. There's more curve that is flowing. We have not drawn it. Is this clear? Hmm? So these are the three values here. So basically, you just want to kind of even mug it up. All right. Now, if notice one thing, let's look at the case for 2 sigma. All right. So in 2 sigma, the value is lying within 2 sigma. So this from -2 to 2, it is 95%, which means all the way up to -2, it will be just 2.5%, right? Because this is 95%, this much, and it is symmetrical around 0. So this plus this is 5%, which means this much is just 2.5%. Is this clear? And then the next thing is, he's saying some of the values. He's saying -1.28, -1.645, -1.96, and -2.33 are 10th, 5th, and 2.5th and 1 percentile of the standard normal distribution. Okay. So what does that mean? That what is the value at which you get 10 percentile? Okay. Uh, and then 5 percentile, 2.5 percentile. Okay. Let's look at this. Uh, so for probability, let's just first look at the probability part, right? I say P norm, all right? P norm. So my first input is Q. Uh, let's say my Q is 1, all right? 1, and I take a standard case. Mean is equal to 0, standard deviation is equal to 1, all right? And then lower tail is equal to true, okay? So P norm of 1 is coming out to be 0.841347. What does that mean? So this is value 1, okay, x-axis 1. So this, the probability all the way down here is 0.8413, which means what? Probability above this is how much? Probability above 1 is how much? So I say 1 minus this, right? Which is 0.158, right? Now, when I'm saying talking about the 68%, how did we get the 68%? So if I'm saying normal density lying between 1 and 2, within 1, right? So minus 1 to 1. So how can I compute this? So if I was to compute this straight away, can I just do this? I say probability of 1, okay? Uh, but what I want to use is, right, p norm of 1 minus p norm of minus 1. So I get 68%. Is this fine? No, there's no such thing as size in this. Where's the question? Size was uh, in the case of binomial, right? Here we don't have a concept of size. It's a density function. So how do I get 68%? Straight away this p norm of 1 will give me this whole region all the way till here. P norm of minus 1 will give me this whole region. So I subtract the two out. Correct? Yeah. Similarly, I say between 2 and minus 2. What should be the answer? What should be the answer between 2 and minus 2? 0.95, right? And that's what I get. Okay. So now he's talking about, the next thing he's saying is, so what percentile is this? So I'm saying if I take a point here, right, that is minus 1.28, right? What is the, how much percent of the area, total area under the curve comes in this region? All right. So how can I compute that? There's something called Q. Now I'm interested in the quantile, right? So I say Q norm. So P norm, Q norm. In Q norm, what is the first uh, input? Uh, Sorry, we will use mm, yeah, right. So in Q norm, my first input is probability, right? So I'm saying 10%, that is nothing but 0.1, and then my mean is equal to 0, standard deviation is 1, and low tail is true. Okay, so what do I get? I get this. Is this fine? So 10 percentile is nothing but 0.1, right? So Q norm is the function that takes care of it straight away. I get minus 1.28. Similarly, uh, so 5 percentile is what? 0.05. Okay, so I get minus 1.64. All right. Similarly, 0.025 is my 2.5 percentile. So I get minus 1, minus 1.96. Okay, and this is nothing but 2 sigma. All right. So this is equivalent to 2 sigma. And then 1 percentile. So I get these values. Is this clear? So by symmetry, I can say similarly 1.28 is equivalent to 90th percentile, 1.645 is 95th percentile line, and 1.96 has 97.5 percentile, and 2.33 has 99 percentile. Right? Is this clear? These values are clear to you? Okay. So what are the 95th percentile of a standard, of a normal distribution with mu and sigma? All right. So I can take Q norm. We've already done this. No, what we need to do is, so we either we change this or we can use this function. I can say my percent, I replace my, so how does it go? Basically what I'm saying is, how can I convert any normal distribution into a standard normal distribution? Say we saw these values which were for standard normal distribution, right? So that's how we get it. But so we're saying standard normal distribution here. Okay. For any distribution, how do I compute this? I say, uh, let's say my distribution is x, all right? So I subtract mu out of it, okay? So that makes it, so the offset on the, so we have two parts to the, what we saw just now. One is the offset here, right? Which is given by mu. So this is mu, okay? So this is the 0 point, all right? And then there's a stretch. The stretch is given by sigma, right? So what I do is x minus mu and then divided by sigma, all right? So when I do this, what happens is this takes care of the offset, this takes care of the stretch, all right? So in our case, so this, let me call it z, all right? So z is what I'm interested in, and I represent it from x like this. So if x is what I already know, right? X I can easily use the p norm q norm formula. I can say x is nothing but sigma z plus mu, rather the other way, right? Sorry, what I will have is, see, whatever new one that I had, let me call it z, right? So I subtracted from that mu and then divided by sigma, I get x back. Huh? So my z is nothing but sigma into x plus mu. So I stretch it, use multiply by multiplying by sigma, and then I offset it by adding mu to it. So that's what is my z, right? So and I can come to x similarly. So that's what he's using here. He says that for any of these values, I can use this formula, right, to compute the values. So in general, mu plus sigma z0, where z0 is the appropriate standard normal quantile. Is this fine? So just a little transformation here. So he's saying, what is the probability that a random normal distribution R is larger than X? So I'm saying, so I say P norm, okay, X comma mu comma sigma, all right, comma lower dot tail is equal to true. This will straight away give me this answer. What am I looking at? I'm saying, so somewhere I get an X, all right. So I'm interested in this. If I take it as false, I'll get this portion, right? So so this is for false and this is for true. Correct? Okay. Assume that the number of daily ad clicks for a company is normal distributed with the mean of, so here is my mean, all right? Standard deviation 50. What is the probability of getting more than 1160 clicks? So what am I interested in? So I have this graph here like this, all right? So I have 1020 and then I have 50, which means this makes it 1070, all right? This single standard deviation. So I'm interested in something like this. What's the probability of getting more than, the value is here, right? No, sorry, it's not 1060, it is somewhere here, right? So I'm saying 1160. So I'm interested in this region, right? So what will that be? So just if you just look at it, so this is how many standard deviations away from the mean? Almost 3, right? Roughly 3, 140, isn't it? 140 more. 50 is the standard deviation, roughly 3 standard deviation. So we know that if it is 3 standard deviation, what will this probability be like? At least just to get an idea. So that's very important that you, you know, for at least single standard deviation, you should remember the answer is, uh, uh, say between the range is 68%, for 2 it is 95%, for 3 it is 99%, which means this value is around 0.5%, right? Let's see what we get actually. So what formula do we use? Tell me, what R formula can I use? Just a second. My So what R formula will we use here? You guys can hear me? Q norm. Okay. What am I interested in? What's the probability? I'm interested in getting the probability, right? So we have two formulae, right? I have P norm and I have Q norm. So this tells the function, right? The distribution, so normal distribution. Then what does this tell? What the output will be probability. This will be the output will be a quantile. What am I interested in? I'm interested in probability, which means I'll use P norm, right? Correct? So what do I do here? So my formula will be P norm. I say P norm. So now what is the value Q? Q is straight away the value which is that I'm interested in. Okay. So in our case, what will be Q? Tell me. So I'm using P norm. What will be Q? Or rather, what is X? What will be my what are the parameters that I should pass to P norm for this particular example? You guys are there? Or are you thinking about it? 1160 minus no. Okay, one is this. I can either pass it this way. What Lavita has said. Lavita said, you do this. I say 1160 minus 1020 divided by 50. Alright. And then my mean is equal to 0. SD is equal to 1. Alright. So, and then what about lower tail or upper tail? Is equal to true or false? So, am I interested in the upper tail or the lower tail? I am interested in the upper tail, right? This portion. So it will be lower dot tail is equal to false, right? So I get this answer, which is 0.002, which is 25, right? So if I was to take it as percentage, I divide it by, hold on, where did we go wrong? Uh, okay, maybe this is correct because at 70 it should have given us that, right? Let's try it out at 70. What do we get? Hmm. So 1020 and standard deviation of 50. Okay, so three standard deviations will give us uh, right. So let me capture it in some value. Let me call it NN. All right. So now into 100. Hold on. Let's just try this out as it is with P norm. We say P norm 11160 comma mean is equal to 1020 comma standard deviation is equal to 50 comma lower dot tail is equal to false. Okay. No, I'm getting the same answer. So let's just, are we getting it correct? At uh, 3 standard deviations from the mean, what is it that we had? 99% of the normal density lies within, so 99% lies within this. So there'll be half of the percent, right? Why are we not getting half percent? Or let's see actually what do we get. So maybe it's not exactly 99%. So what we do is uh, P norm of Q is equal to 3. So I get this. That's the, so it's more than 99% actually, right? So if I say lower tail is equal to false, so I get this, right? And I multiply this by 2. So I get, and then I multiply it by 100. So 3 sigma is actually 99.7%, is it? Is this correct? Is 3 sigma equivalent to 99.7%? Is that what we, or 99.7 percentile and not actually 99 percentile? Is that correct? Yeah, Lavita, maybe you would have gone through it in your, right? 99.7 percentile, right? So, okay, so we've got our answer correct. Is this fine? So here he's saying 99 percentile, it's will be not 99 percentile, 99.7 percentile. Okay, so yeah, so he's just taken an approximation, right? But that approximation is good if when I'm saying 99 percentile, but the difference, the error margin is huge, right? On one hand, we have 1%, another hand, we have just 0.3%, right? So 0.3% and 1% have a huge error margin. So approximation is not a good idea here. He should have said 99.7 percentile. Let's just, okay. So, so is this fine? We're done with this question? All right. Assume that the number of daily clicks is normally distributed. So we've already solved this. 0. 0, this is what we also got. You can refer to your slides. All right. So what he's saying is SD is equal to 50, this value and so on, and you get your answer, which is 0.0025. In our case, all right. So we can also get the same answer. As Lavita said, we can just divide it, right? So we say that P norm of 2.8 standard deviations will give me the same answer. Both ways is the same. Have you understood this formula? Straight away formula, actually there's nothing, just that you should become familiar with it. So is P norm clear to you all, guys? Salman, Dipankar, Debashri? Okay, let's move to the next example. Assume that the number of daily clicks is normally distributed with a mean of 1020, standard deviation 50. What number of daily ad clicks would represent the one where 70% of the days have fewer clicks? So what am I interested in now? So I'm interested in, I'm saying, so 1020, all right. So this is 1070. This is my 1 sigma, okay, all right, mu. Then I'm saying where 75% of the days have fewer clicks. Yes, I need 75 percentile, right? So I need, I know that 68% fits into this. Let's just do it mathematically first, not with the formula. 68% is this, which means this portion is how much? If from here to here it is 68%, how much is this portion? Approximately. About 16%, right? Because 68% is from here to here. So those are roughly 16%. So now what I'm interested in, 75%. So this point is about 84%. So I'm interested in something here. So actually I mean, just to get an idea, my answer will be less than 1070. Now what I do is I can straight away use the Q norm formula, right? So Q norm will uh, remember, didn't we say that standard deviation between uh, between so, so normal approximately 68% of the normal density lies within one standard deviation, right, from the mean. So if this 68%, so 100 minus 68% is 32%, right? And they are equally distributed. So I will get 16% both sides. So I get 16% here. So 16% plus 68% plus 16% gives me 100%. Clear? Okay, that's how this will be 16%. So if I come back to my formula now, so I say Q norm, all right? So in the Q norm, I want to give the probability. So my probability is 75%, right? So which is 0.75. And then my mean is what? 1020. Standard deviation is 50. What am I interested in? What's the probability of getting more than? No, sorry, this is the wrong question. We already solved this. This is what we are interested in, right? So what's the would represent one where 70% of the days have fewer clicks. So we are interested in load or tail is equal to true anyways, right? So I get this answer, right? 1053, correct? So we, and this is what we were also coming to. We said that our answer has to be less than 107270. It will be greater than 1020, right? So we got it correct. All right. Next is assume that the number of daily clicks for a company is normally distributed. Same question. What number of daily clicks would represent one where 75% of the days have fewer clicks? Oh, we have already solved this. Okay. Now let's come to Poisson distribution. All right. So so in the Poisson distribution, this is how you. This is what your uh, probability density curve is. All right. Lambda raised to x e raised to minus lambda divided by x bar. Now there's a mass function. Why is it a mass function? Because Poisson distribution is actually it's a it's a discrete distribution. It's about, let's say if I say in 1 hour how many people how many vehicles are going to cross a particular point on the road. All right. Let's say if I put a camera and I want to check how many vehicles cross each hour. So now that will be a fixed number, right? It's not going to be a continuous number, either 100 or 200 or 99, whatever that is. So Poisson distribution is a discrete distribution. Let's look at it. Let's see what Wikipedia says about it. All right. Uh, all right. So it has a probability mass function. So if you look at the Wikipedia, now it says the horizontal axis is the index k. We'll look at this terminology. All right. The function is only defined at integer values of k. The connecting lines are only guides for the eye. Is this clear? So here it's only will so we'll have some parameter which is determining all this. So first thing is that the Poisson distribution is a um, discrete variable. All right. So now the Poisson distribution has a concept of, I say, uh, lambda, right? So I'm saying Poisson distribution that x is equal to x where the value of lambda is this. All right. So it has two values only, x and lambda. Okay. So in effectively, for example, I can say how many people in 1 hour, right? In which case, and given the mu, right? So given the standard deviation. So I say standard deviation of this, or rather the average of this is given by lambda. Okay. And x is what I'm interested in. All right. X is what I'm interested in finding. So for x is equal to 0 to 1 and so on. Now, what is interesting about the Poisson distribution? The mean and the variance both are lambda. all right, and then x will range all the way from 0 to infinity, doesn't go into minus, okay, because there's no concept of minus factorial. Is this clear? So a little bit of just understanding of the Poisson distribution. This is what the formula is, okay. As we move ahead, so it says some of the users are in modeling the count data. Okay, now what is of use here is, so we will I can plot that curve for you and show it to you, but more importantly what will be of total relevance is we normally use it to model the rates, okay. When I say rate means, for example, how many people passed in 1 hour. So I can say x is equal to Poisson of lambda t, all right, where lambda is e into x divided by t. Basically I use this concept of t. So t is the total monitoring time. So normally what I will have is, so what we saw is we had two parameters, right? One is x and another is lambda. So I can use my, I can change, I transform it to Poisson distribution wherein I multiply it by a value called t. For example, if I say the number of people that show up at a bus stop is Poisson with a mean of 2.5 per hour, all right. So this 2.5 per hour. So if I'm watching the bus stop for 4 hours, what is the probability that 3 or fewer people show up for the whole time? So this whole time is of interest. What is my whole time? My total time is what? Hello there. So what's my total time? 4, right? So I have 4 hours. But lambda is given for only 1 hour. So lambda is given only for 1 hour. So how do I compute these values? Come back here in my Poisson distribution. There are only two parameters, lambda and x. My x is 3. That is what I know, right? What about lambda? Right. So what I do with lambda is I actually consider it for the whole time. That is what is important about when I say whole time. So lambda becomes 2.5 into 4, 10, right? So now just like we had R norm and sorry, P norm and Q norm, similarly we have P poise and Q poise, all right. And let's first look at P poise, right? I say P poise, all right. So my Q is what? 3 and my lambda is 4 into 2.5. So I get this as an answer. So which is effectively 1%. So the probability that 3 or lesser number of people are going to be there at the bus stop is only 1%. So effectively there will be more. Let's see, does it work same if I was to divide it on both sides? I said this is 4. So effectively 3 is for the whole time, right? What if I divide it by, so I take it as it is 2.5, and when I say per hour is how much? 0.75. So I'm getting a different answer. Understand this. So I can't say my mean is 2.5 and I divide x by 4. It'll give me a different answer. Is this clear? So we don't divide x by that number of, by the time. We actually multiply the lambda by that. Is this part very clear? No? So I won't say x divided by the value. Okay? I would actually convert this lambda here and accordingly I will have the x. Because when I'm saying that it is per hour it is 0.75, that is not true. You saw 3 people or less over 4 hours, or you x number of people over the 4 hours. So sometimes it will be more, sometimes less. So some averaging out is happening. Is this part clear or not? How we solve this kind of a problem using the Poisson distribution? Especially this multiplying by the time and not dividing by the time. What about the rest of you? Salman? Okay. Uh, Let me go a little further. What I've done here is I've created a function called myPoise. All right. Uh, Okay. Uh, so just look at this. So I've created a function called myPoise, all right, and this function uh, is based on the formula that we had. Okay, so we had this formula. Okay, so it gives me the individual probability. Understand, when I'm using p, how is p-poise different from this formula? So my formula is probability that x is equal to x, right, with a value of particular lambda is equal to lambda raised to x into e raised to minus lambda divided by x factorial. But what about p, no, p poise? What does that give me? Does it give me this probability or does it give me something else? Come on. So what is p poise giving me? Is it giving me x is equal to some x small x or something else? Come on. I would really want you to answer this. What is p poise giving me? You can use the help to understand it. It's fine. You can use p poise help. Are you clear with my question? Is p poise the same as this? Is p poise giving me x is equal to x for a value of lambda, or is it giving me something else? No answer, no response. Something else. What is that something else? P poise actually gives a summation of all of this. It gives me probability that x is less than equal to x for a given lambda. So effectively it is nothing but, let me call this as some constant. Let me call it y, right? So p poise is nothing but, let me call it yi for x is equal to I, right? So I call it yi summation I is equal to 0 to I. That's what p poise gives me. All right. So what I'm doing now is I am uh, I have created a variable which doesn't give me p poise. I have created my poise, which is the same as this y. All right. So I've created that function. I say probability is nothing but lambda into x into exponential of minus lambda divided by factorial of x. Is this fine? So I've created this function. Let me execute this. Having created this function, now what I'm doing is I want to plot. All right. So I'm going to execute my pause multiple times for x values of x from 0 to 10. All right. And I decide one lambda. I say lambda is equal to 1 and then I plot it. Is this fine? Is this clear what I'm doing here? Let's see what the plot looks like. So I take this value and I get this. Let us look at what Wikipedia gives us. Wikipedia is giving us something similar. Do you see this? It says lambda is equal to 1. I get a point like this. This between 0.35 and zero point 0.4, somewhere around 0.37. This is same and this is same, and so on. Know that the lines are just to show you the values. That doesn't mean anything. Is this correct? We are also getting the same thing here. Have you followed what we have done? Now let us do the same formula for lambda is equal to, so he's done it for lambda is equal to 4. All right, so I'm also doing it for lambda is equal to 4. So I'm taking lambda is equal to 4. I get a curve which is like this. Let's see what he has. He also has got a curve like this. Is this clear? Similarly, I can do it for lambda is equal to 10. Okay. So I copy my code. change this to 10. Am I getting the same curve? Because I'm plotting only till 10 values, I see the curve going up. Is this clear? So can you see, basically it is nothing but just the computation for the simple function that is there. What is that function? We already know it. It is this lambda raised to x e raised to minus lambda divided by x factorial. And we can actually plot it as well using R. Done? So Poisson's distribution is understood, and where you need to take care of it. Now, interesting thing about Poisson is actually an approximation to the binomial. Let me do when n is very large and p is small. All right. Poisson distribution is an accurate approximation to the binomial distribution. Actually, it is right. So so I can substitute lambda by n into p. So now n becomes very large, p gets very small. Okay, and we will see where the usages of this is. All right. We will, for example, let's say, uh, what am I interested in? I'm interested in, uh, let's say Airtel, right? So Airtel is receiving a lot of calls every hour, right? So Airtel customer support is receiving many calls, maybe 2000 calls in an hour. But these 2000 calls, let's say they are coming from out of 100 million customers that they have. Let's say, assume they have 100 million customers. Out of those 100 million customers, each hour they're getting 2000 calls, or say 1000 calls. So 1000 is a huge number as such, but uh, if we look at the probability of each individual calling, if given the total customer base is 100 million, all right, and then per hour calling is 1k, all right, which means the probability of each person calling is how much?